Come one, come all, this week's brand new episode of Pixel Peak.
I'm Bobby Eggins, and I'm glad to be joined by co-host Jean-Luc Clark. As always, we've got a jam-packed show starting with news about a controversial YouTube channel and Blizzard's newest announcements that were less than well received by fans.
Xbox hosted a unique event last week in Mexico City called X018, where they made some new announcements. We'll be joined by Xbox analyst and associate producer Kyle Presley to discuss the event in more detail.
Reviewer Zach Clayton tackles My Hero One's Justice in this week's game review.
And for our editorial, I'll tell you guys all about Nintendo's position in the esports scene and why they seem hesitant to commit to the billion-dollar industry.
You guys should be thankful we were able to pull Jean-Luc away from Red Dead Redemption 2 long enough to record this episode for you guys.
Oh, don't worry, Bobby. I have everything set up in the control room so I can play in between takes.
Wow, truly a master of his craft. Let's get this started up so Jean-Luc can get back to his true love. I'm Bobby Eggins.
I'm Jean-Luc Clark, and we hope you enjoyed your stay here on Pixel Peak. Last week, YouTube deleted multiple videos of Red Dead Redemption 2 playthroughs that focus on the beating and killing of a suffragette in one of the game's cities. The game takes place in 1899, 21 years before the 19th Amendment. Cities across New Austin are home to women campaigning for their suffrage. Shortly after the game dropped, one YouTuber who goes by Shirako uploaded a video to the platform titled Red Dead Redemption 2, Beating Up Annoying Feminists, in which he found a suffragette and proceeded to beat her unconscious. Shirako followed this video with ones of him feeding the woman to pigs, dropping her down a mine shaft, and more. After the videos were removed and Shirako was suspended from YouTube for violating community guidelines, YouTube saw backlash on social media, including complaints from content creators from its own platform. PewDiePie quote-tweeted a complaint from Shirako and suggested that the removal of the video would encourage further violence against this one particular NPC. After seeing strong opposition to Shirako's suspension, YouTube reinstated the video producer and the videos of his that were taken down. In a statement to the BBC, a YouTuber spokesman said, YouTube's community guidelines prohibit, among other things, gratuitous violence, nudity, dangerous and illegal activities, and hate speech. Creative formats such as video games can be challenging to assess, but when content crosses the line and is flagged to our attention, we take action as necessary. Since his reinstatement, Shirako has continued to upload edgy videos such as Hitler gets punched off a cliff, finding the KKK and killing every single one, as well as more videos targeting marginalized groups like beating up a Chinese man and deporting a Mexican.
When Square Enix announced a live stream about Final Fantasy XV last week, many fans expected to get news about the game's upcoming DLC. They did, in a sense, but probably not the kind of news they wanted to see. What viewers actually learned during the live stream was that Final Fantasy XV's director, Hajime Tabata, had resigned from his position at Square Enix on October 31st. To make matters worse for players, Square Enix also announced that 75% of Final Fantasy XV's DLC had been cancelled. The Episode Arden DLC pack will still be released in March 2019, but the Dawn of the Future DLC plan, which included Episode Arena, Episode Lunafreya, and Episode Noctis, will no longer see the light of day.
Last week's edition of Blizzard's annual event, Blizzcon, brought heat towards the developer in a couple of ways. One such way followed the announcement of a new Overwatch character, a gunslinging summoner named Ashe. She leads the Deadlock gang that McCree was a part of before he was recruited to Blackwash by Reaper and Soldier 76. Following Ashe's announcement, many fans took to social media to express their disappointment that, more than 2 years in, Blizzard still hasn't made a black woman playable in the game. Overwatch originally prided itself on its representation and diversity, but the game has failed to live up to that lately, opting to add more novel characters like Wrecking Ball, who is a hamster in a mech. A few days before the announcement, Twitch collective Black Girl Gamers posted an article on their site that said, Overwatch is often praised as a game that has gotten diversity right and represents many people from various backgrounds to the best of its ability. But where others see effort, many black women see laziness and exclusion. In response to questions on the subject at BlizzCon, Overwatch lead developer Jeff Kaplan told Kotaku that there are currently 6 new characters in development for Overwatch. This may imply that one or more black women may be among them, but for many people, it may be too little, too late by the time they actually see release.
Also revealed at BlizzCon was a brand new entry for the Diablo series. The trailer shown looked promising until the end cards read Diablo Immortal coming soon to mobile. Longtime Diablo fans took this announcement pretty negatively and worried that mobile would be the path that the series would take for the near future. To reassure fans, Alan Adham, executive producer and Blizzard co-founder, said that Diablo Immortal is only one of the apparently multiple Diablo titles currently in development. He also made clear that the title was not simply a placeholder to tide Diablo fans over, but more for the franchise to reach new audiences, particularly younger ones and the Eastern Asian market. Dan Elgren, Blizzard's production director, also stepped in to defend the announcement, telling Polygon, "We take the time to iterate to put out the best experience. You know, we'll listen to the passion we have from fans, and we will definitely take those things to heart and make sure we do right." So even though Diablo is going through a weird growth spurt and fans aren't necessarily liking it right now, the new entry's developers seem to be just as focused as they've always been on making a quality experience for players.
Some surprising footage from a Japanese livestream of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate surfaced last week concerning the fighter Mr. Game & Watch. During his forward smash animation, his sprite transformed from a generic silhouette to one matching the sprite used in 1982's Fire Attack Game & Watch. This depicted a stereotypical image of a Native American wearing a featherhead headdress. Game director Masahiro Sakurai detailed at E3 this year that Mr. Game & Watch would be seeing some animation changes to match his original games. No one expected for these animations to include the highly controversial imagery that Nintendo itself excluded in its 2002 Game & Watch Gallery 4 release. Even though it's only included in the Japanese version, fans addressed the controversy, to which Nintendo issued the following apology. "We sincerely apologize that this change was not noticed in our marketing material and are continuing our work to make Super Smash Bros. Ultimate an experience that is both welcoming and fun for everyone." It was later confirmed that Smash Bros. Ultimate would be issued a Day 1 patch that replaces the animation shown in the livestream to calm fans still worried about the reference inclusion. That does it for This Week in News. Why don't we move on to our analysis segment?
Hosted in Mexico City, Xbox X018 event was a special edition of Inside Xbox. Xbox Live's Director of Programming, Larry Herb, better known as Major Nelson, led the live event as different developers came on stage to talk about trailers and updates that were just shown. We're joined today with our Xbox analyst, Kyle Presley, to learn more about how the event went and what it means for Xbox's future. Kyle, thanks for coming on. We're so happy to have you.
Absolutely, it's great to be here.
So Kyle, we gotta get down to business. X018, tell us a little bit about it, why was Xbox deciding to host it?
Okay, so essentially what X018 was Microsoft's own E3. It's very based on their specific idea of, game trailers. We've got new acquisition of studios and stuff like that. There's a lot going on there. The biggest thing to relate it to, I would say, would be Sony's like PSX and Nintendo's Directs. So it's just like a very Xbox-focused E3 type thing, conference.
Gotcha. So I'm sure there are some people who haven't seen X018 yet. So would you mind running us through a list of what was shown?
Sure. The big things, a lot of game trailers. We had trailers for Kingdom Hearts. We had trailers for Just Cause 4. Some stuff for Crackdown 3. We also had a lot of talk about Game Pass and what the future of that's going to look like. New Forza Horizon stuff, which was really neat, and also the big thing that they talked about were both mouse and keyboard support coming to console, and of course the acquisition of 2 brand new studios to the Microsoft's family.
Could you clarify a little bit more about those 2 studio acquisitions?
So the big studio acquisitions are In Exile Entertainment, which are known for making lots of RPGs, and of course Obsidian Entertainment, which of course is known for making Fallout New Vegas. That's their biggest thing among some other RPG titles. So they're now part of the Xbox family.
So what exactly does this mean for sort of the future, or rather Xbox's next few steps going forward?
So the real big thing for them is probably going to be like first-party exclusives. They've been, I don't want to say lagging behind Sony and Nintendo in years past, but this is definitely going to help them have a much stronger set of exclusives for the console. They usually rely on Halo, Gears of War, and Forza as their main titles, but now I think we could really see some much stronger games coming into exclusivity for Xbox in the future.
So out of everything that was at X018, what do you think is going to be the biggest threat to other game companies? What's going to put Microsoft up there?
I really think it's going to be the acquisition of those 2 studios, especially in particular Obsidian Entertainment. They have a really good track record as far as it goes for making good games, good RPG games, and they have a really good standing in the gaming community, and I think that's going to put them ahead not only just these two new studios, but all of the studios that they talked about acquiring over E3. Playground Games, they're known for making the Horizon series for Forza. They're going to be in there. You've got Ninja Theory as well, among lots of others. So I think that's going to give them really strong first-party support, and I think we might see them come out on top above Nintendo and Sony in years to come.
And I think another big thing that Xbox has been pushing as well is their Game Pass program. Why do you think that is?
Well, so for those who don't know what Game Pass is, it's essentially it's very similar to PlayStation's PlayStation Now, which allows users to stream games. Except Xbox Game Pass allows users to download the games, full games. There's over 100 in the catalog and growing, and they really talked that up during this X018 event. They added PUBG is now going to be one of the games featured in that lineup, which is, as you know, massive battle royale game, really big in the community, as well as all Microsoft exclusive titles from now on into the future will be included on release day on Game Pass. So that's a really big bonus for them, and I think that makes it really strong, not only for the company in general, but it's a great place for gamers to start. Let's say you just got an Xbox and you're not quite sure if you want to go out and spend $60 on a brand new game that you may or may not like. Spend $10 on Game Pass for a month of Game Pass, and you have over 100 titles that you can choose from to go about and try out and test. So it's a really good way to get on the ground floor if you're new to Xbox gaming.
So you mentioned they showed Crackdown 3. I remember some 10 years ago hearing about Crackdown 2, and I know other games, Kingdom Hearts 3 and what was it, Duke Nukem Forever, also had these huge gaps in their being announced and finally releasing. Do you think Crackdown 3 is going to suffer for being delayed this long, or do you think it's going to be better for it?
I think it might have a little trouble getting a running start. We've seen a lot of games be delayed. Two I think of right off the bat. Red Dead already out. Spyro just finally released. So this isn't the first game to be released. It is a long time, so I think that might affect it, a little bit. But I think for the most part, fans of Crackdown are just really going to enjoy playing Crackdown and finally having one on the next gen systems. And they already have Crackdown 2 on backwards compatibility, so that's going to help them out a little bit as far as getting through, the wait time. So I think it should be all right.
Well, it sounds like Microsoft certainly showed off a lot at their X018, and we'll have to see where they go. So thanks again for coming on, Kyle.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
So thank you so much for your input, and now I'd like to send it to Jean-Luc for this week's editorial.
Nintendo knows that some players take their games very seriously. Even at the beginnings of the Nintendo Entertainment System, where high scores were erased when the console was reset, there were competitive players for single-player games like Donkey Kong, Tetris, and Balloon Fight. Nintendo even went out of their way to host the Nintendo World Championships for these players in 1990, manufacturing a unique game cartridge that was specifically programmed for the championship challenges. It would take 25 years for the gaming giant to host another championship, this time based on modern titles like Splatoon, Super Mario Maker, and Mario Kart 8. But this time, these competitions were here to stay. The Nintendo World Championship made a second return in 2017, and since the release of Super Smash Bros. For Wii U in 2014, there have been invitationals where celebrities and esports stars alike are officially invited to compete against one another with select games. By hosting more competitions worldwide and tailoring games like Splatoon 2, ARMS, and the upcoming Super Smash Bros. Ultimate to competitive players, is Nintendo finally supporting the competitive scene? Unfortunately, the most that Nintendo is trying to do right now is trying, and only in certain aspects. In an interview with ESPN at this year's E3 conference, Nintendo of America President and COO Reggie Fils-Aimé gave an interesting response when asked about the format of competitive tournaments in the future. As we see success, we'll continue to invest, and that investment is going to look different than what other companies are doing. We may sponsor some sort of circuit. We may do things purely online as a way to encourage the community. We're going to experiment across a number of different titles and across a number of different regions. Reggie also talked to Variety Gaming about getting involved in the competitive scene and said that the common esports scenario where professionals play for a living or for a large pot of money was one that they weren't really interested in. If Nintendo is trying to dip their toe into the competitive scene, it certainly doesn't want to do it traditionally, and it really isn't quite sure of how to handle competitive gaming yet. That being said, new titles designed for competitive play like ARMS and Splatoon 2 are seeing a lot of support from Nintendo through physical tournaments and constant balancing updates worldwide. But other franchises are not seeing as much love. Developers behind Mario Tennis Aces, one of the more obvious esports picks, deliver game patches in huge waves instead of incrementally for testing, which often leads to outcries for changes that aren't even seen for weeks or even months. Not to mention that most of the events with the game have been online tournaments, which have been received as less serious due to the lower budget nature of online-only events. Even Pokémon is seemingly stepping off of the competitive pedestal with Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, despite the Pokémon company holding their own annual traditional championships since 2004. These games are seeing the removal of competitive breeding, and even through franchise director Junichi Masuda is stepping away from the role after this title. There's no telling if Game Freak will continue to implement this philosophy of showing players a different side of the game in future entries. It's not just the games that sometimes portray the competitive scene though. The hardware and services provided by the Nintendo Switch are also hindering its potential of being as competitively viable as other platforms. Not all games being able to run at a fluid frame rate of 60 FPS can compromise those games for competitive play, even at the local level. The Nintendo Switch online service is still variable in its performance at best because of connections only being as strong as the weakest link. This has caused problems like random disconnects and other unfair disadvantages for players of the most fine-tuned competitive online games. Only being able to chat with friends through an official Nintendo app and not in-game through the console doesn't bode well for players who enjoy online competitive play as a part of a team either. Even though Nintendo's goal is to make a fun experience at the end of the day, a lot of people have fun through online competition, and that's just an area that Nintendo hasn't really mastered yet. Players' best bet when Nintendo's esports scene comes with their next generation hardware, and hopefully larger teams of employees who can dedicate themselves and their games to competitive optimization. Thank you to writer Tanner Mazzell for that piece, and now reviewer Zach Clayton joins us for this week's game review.
Welcome back, viewers, to another Pixel Peek review. This week we're covering the quirky arena fighter My Hero One's Justice. Let's see if the game is just as likable as the show. It's fine now, because I am here to review My Hero One's Justice. Developed by Biking and published by Bandai Namco, My Hero One's Justice lets fans finally take control of their favorite heroes and villains and throw down in some of the show's most notable locations. But does this game live up to the hype, or is it just alright? Let's find out. My Hero One's Justice plays as a typical fighter. You play as some of the major characters of My Hero Academia with two sidekick characters who will aid you with their own special attacks during a battle. These sidekick characters can be used multiple times and offer a good range of options for support. Some stun or hold the enemy down, while others may deal direct damage by bringing the smackdown. The player's characters have their basic attacks, 2 basic super attacks, and then they have 3 ultimate attacks. If used strategically, players can whip up some awesome combos and unleash havoc upon their opponents. The game offers multiple game modes for players to enjoy: story mode, missions, online and local modes, arcade, and training. The story mode, as it suggests, has players play through the story of the show, although it's not as one would expect. The game's story starts in the middle of the show's second season, so if you're looking for the full story, this isn't the place to find it. The story does go through some of the show's best fights as well as some smaller subplot scenarios, and allows players to play through the villains' perspectives as well. With the missions, players select a stage to complete with 3 characters of their choice. In this mode, the enemies are given different advantages, and sometimes there are certain win conditions like ring outs or win before the timer runs out. A character's health carries over from mission to mission, so it's recommended to play more cautiously and strategically, though you are given power-ups and bonuses that can help you throughout each mission. There are online and local modes, which are pretty self-explanatory. Online, you can play with friends or strangers over the internet, and with local, you can play with your friends on the same device. The training mode is a great way to test new combos or try new characters against a programmable AI. Arcade mode has players fight their way through 6 battles with a single character and 2 supporting allies. In this mode, the battles are won after 2 victories over your opponent, and upon beating all 6 stages, the player unlocks an exclusive item such as some customization piece for the characters. Each character has 3 different arcade mode quest lines to play through, although it appears random which one you get. On the subject of customization, My Hero One's Justice lets you customize your character's look and your profile. You can set up a banner and motto to show off to other players your accomplishments in the game. As far as characters, the customization is a bit more fun. You can apply many different items to each character, making it look like they fell into an open prop box. You can also add different voice lines that play on a character's entrance and a cool or weird catchphrase that also displays on entrance. My Hero the game looks good and plays through a comic book style with some nicely done 3D animated cutscenes thrown in on occasion that help bring the world to life. All the characters are well done and each of them play differently due to their having different powers, which ensures there's always a different way to play the game. It's loads of fun to jump into the world of the show and play as your favorite character in some of the most iconic fights. The game leaves a lot to be desired, however. The combat can sometimes feel clunky and lazy. For example, players can choose to play in either manual combat mode or normal combat mode, where in manual, players have to perform combos themselves, while in normal, players simply mash one button over and over and the game pretty much does all the work for you. The AI seem to want to run about all the time and avoid all interaction, making it very annoying and sometimes difficult to hit them. The biggest issue for me though is the lack of an English voiceover. With the show being as popular as it is, having a cult following, and with all the other show-based games Bandai Namco has published, it doesn't make sense for them not to include one, and there don't appear to be any plans for it in the future. It's not a game breaker, but it sure is disappointing. As far as arena fighting games go, My Hero One's Justice is pretty standard, with a fun addition of the quirks. As much as I want this game to be great, it falls short of that quality, but it's by no means a bad game. Sure, it has its share of problems, but it's fun to play, it looks good, and it adds a new way for fans of the show to enjoy the world and characters. With some work and fine-tuning, My Hero One's Justice could be outstanding, but as of now, it's just average. It's minor things holding this game down, but it does put a smile on my face, so it's average, but it's a very good, very fun average.
So remember, go beyond, plus ultra.
Because of its minor issues, My Hero One's Justice is just an average game and not quite plus ultra. Let's send it to Bobby and Jean-Luc to wrap up the show.
Red Dead. Must play. Logan, coming back my Red Dead.
Hold on, Jean-Luc, we're almost there, buddy. Why don't you tell the good people about our social medias?
If you'd like to chat with us, check out our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Find us at Pixel Peak App TV across all platforms. We'd also love if you hit up our App TV, YouTube, and Facebook with a good old like and subscribe.
Thanks to our incredible staff for working on this episode. Shout out to writers Max Stein and Tanner Mazzell, reviewer Zach Clayton, associate producer and analyst Kyle Presley, and producer Will Strickland.
New episodes premiere live on App TV every Wednesday at 4 p.m. and at 4:15 p.m. on the same day on App TV's YouTube channel. And if you're a real fan, you'll watch on TV.
Now, just before we go, I'd like to deliver a monologue. In these troubling times, times of mischief, times of panic, times of gloom, and times of turmoil, it is ever so important to...
Bobby, no, please no, I'm so close.
Unfortunately, you guys will have to hear that performance another time. I'm Bobby Eggins.
I'm Jean-Luc Clark, and we hope you enjoyed your stay here on Pixel Peak.